We just finished another night of AEW Dynamite on TNT, and guess what? It was pretty great. The wrestling was fun. There were some slip-ups here and there, but overall, it was a great show. But just like pretty much every single week of AEW, there was something missing. The motherfucking women's division. I mean, at this point, it's hard to defend anymore. As a lot of you know, I defend AEW. Usually I think I'm defending them pretty justifiably, but, hey, what am I to say? But in this situation, it is so hard to defend their women's division. A couple things I want to clarify. Number one, I'm not really sure what to title this video to make it fair, because it's not the fault of the women in the AEW women's division. It's not their fault. Also, number two, yes, I'm a man talking about this. I'm going to have a video later where I talk to my girlfriend about this, and it's going to be more of a roundtable discussion and instead of like a edited video, but I just wanted to be able to get my thoughts out first prior to that video. AEW's women's division has always been the biggest thing they have been criticized for.
I called out AEW for it in my review earlier for just, it's so hard to get invested in the women's division because you'll take a step forward with, oh, that was a really good match. And then a couple of steps back with where it's, this felt like a massive afterthought. Oh, we've got to put on some women's segments. Let's cram it literally in the bit where people typically are brought down before the main event.
When AEW first started, one of the things that they said they were going to put a lot of thought into was their women's division. At the AEW press conference that we had, one of the first big angles was between Kylie Rae and Nyla Rose. We didn't really know who either of those were, and it was exciting. It set that up. We've had a lot of really cool moments, like we had the Women's Casino Battle Royale, where we had Mercedes Martinez debut, and that was really cool. Overall, I think the women's division, in terms of who they have, is very strong. So there are a couple problems with the women's division as a whole. I think the first problem, especially when they first started out, was the fact that there wasn't really many people to sign. And I'm not saying that the independent scene doesn't have enough good women to sign. That's not it. But when you first start a company, you want people who have notoriety, who people know of. And that's why they got Britt Baker. Britt Baker was brought on as like the face of the women's division. Emphasis on face. She turned heel later. But Britt Baker was like signed on to be like the poster child of the women's division because someone like Brandy Rhodes isn't known as much for her wrestling. They also brought in people like Allie and then, of course, Nyla Rose and Kylie Rae, who ended up, being a decent part of the beginning. During the time before we had shows like Dynamite, the women's storylines weren't really that important, but I think AEW is still finding their foothold. They were just running off these like smaller pay-per-view style shows. AEW really hadn't found their footing yet. But they didn't really have anyone to sign because WWE had signed everyone because of the Mae Young Classic. And really just because they wanted to sign everyone just because. I mean, they signed Mercedes Martinez almost immediately after she appeared on All Out. And she's been doing great, but you can't help but wonder if they wanted to bring her full time just because AEW wanted her. And so starting out for AEW was hard with their women's division because they didn't really have that many people that were established. And so they left the women's division in the hands of Nyla Rose and Riho. And honestly, I think that's where they first went wrong. They could have easily established Nyla Rose as a great first women's champion. The problem is that Nyla Rose was... I don't like saying this word because I have no place in using it because I'm not a wrestler, but, people were saying that she was very green. She hadn't had as much experience. And, it was being able to show. So they gave it to Riho, who had a lot more wrestling experience. Kenny Omega being very close to her probably helped. But, that's not nepotism. That's not like being favorites. That's just how it works. You're going to give titles to people who you think deserve it. And without much of a pedigree, you're going to give it to people who you know. And so Riho was a decent person to give it to first. So when we had those first matches for the women's title, people were very into Riho, but a lot of people thought it was kind of clunky. And the women's division was given time, at least, they were given some spotlight But I think the first thing that people really said that was like a red flag for the women's division was the title. The title is so small. I mean, man, like, it looks like a toy belt. And I get it. Your first champion is Riho. Like, that makes sense. But then you give it to Nyla Rose second, and it just looks so tiny. And it's hard for people to take it as seriously when it doesn't look like a title that should be as big of a deal as the men's title. Something that I think NXT has done really well is that they have made their women's championship almost, if not as important as the men's championship. They look almost identical. There was even a time where they were just calling both of them the NXT championships. They rightly switched back because that was, confusing. They make both their championships feel like big deals. We then got to the point where AEW was finally establishing some of the new people that they have signed in their division. We were getting some nice things with Bea Priestley and Britt Baker that kind of went away, and partly might have been because Britt Baker was just not able to come to the country as much as they would like, but that was there. We've had some really good stuff with Big Swole and Britt Baker. Oh, Britt Baker's excellent. But we're getting these, like, supplementary storylines that don't revolve around the women's title. That's something I think a lot more wrestling promotions should do, is give us more than just title storylines. So basically, Riho had a run, and then Nyla Rose got the title. And in my opinion, Nyla Rose was an awesome champion. It was a great time to take it off Riho because I thought she was just kind of, floundering, and Nyla Rose was an amazing champion. She felt legit. And Nyla Rose really started connecting to the crowd. She really got people invested in her matches, and people wanted to see her lose. And then we brought in Hikaru Shida, who I don't think has gotten enough credit for just how amazing she is. People were like, oh, Riho is just such a lovable baby face. And I'm over here like, but we got Hikaru Shida, who is fucking phenomenal. She is everything everyone says Riho is and more. She is a badass. She has awesome ring attire. Her ring entrance is really cool. I think Hikaru Shida is the total package, and I think she is going to be a huge star, if not already. But when they gave Hikaru Shida the win, some people thought it was too early to take it off Nyla Rose, but in my opinion, if it wasn't Hikaru Shida, then who? Because Britt Baker's injured and is a heel, and with the pandemic going on, it's harder to make people, which I think AEW figured out. It's harder to make people. But the problem is I feel like they've kind of given up. I just want to stress again that this is not the fault of the women in AEW. This is the fault of the booking. We're not really totally sure who's running the AEW women's division, so I'm not going to call anyone particularly out. But if what has been said is to be believed, it's a lot of like Kenny Omega and Brandy Rhodes. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. So I'm just going to say that now, and I'm not going to refer to that ever again. But, that's who is rumored to be running the women's division. Ever since the pandemic really started, like as soon as Double or Nothing ended, we've gotten to the point where we've gotten like one women's segment for the entire show of Dynamite. That's so frustrating. A lot of what people were saying was, a whole bunch of the women's wrestlers are currently stuck in other countries, and that's true. But that's not all true. We've had new people signed since then, like Anna Jay, who mysteriously is now in the Dark Order, and it really hasn't been explained. And then we have people like Abaddon, who seems really fucking cool, but we don't know anything about her because we don't see her on TV. I'm sorry, but you can't expect people to watch Dark every week. First of all, Dark's not a big deal. You don't have competitive matches. It's all squash matches, which is fine. I think Dark's great, but you can't expect people to get to know people just through Dark. We don't have time. I wish I could watch Dark, but I just can't. And same with Being the Elite. I don't know if there's women's storylines going on in Being the Elite, but I wouldn't know. I just do not have as much time as I would like. And you shouldn't expect people to just know what's going on. You should tell us if there's something important. Let us know. I want the AEW women's division to succeed because women's wrestling is awesome. And AEW has given a bunch of women chances, but the problem is it's not consistent and they're not given like any time. Like tonight, the main event was the Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho match, and I'm like, okay, that should be coming on next, and no, it's Hikaru Shida, and I'm like, oh, well, does that mean we're not going to get much time with the Orange Cassidy Chris Jericho match? And then it dawns on me, no, it means we're going to get a really short match with our women's champion, and that's basically all we got with the women's division tonight. That is so heartbreaking. I think the most heartbreaking thing to me is the fact that the AEW Tag Team Tournament is on YouTube. And Brandy Rhodes recently said something where she's like, oh, this is my dream come true that this is on YouTube. And that really rubbed me the wrong way, because why is that your dream come true? No, because that's a lie. And if it is, that's stupid. You're able to put stuff on YouTube. Anyone is. Yes, like, you potentially could get more eyes on YouTube than you could on Dynamite, but when you put something on YouTube, it just has the air of not being as important, because anyone can see it, and it's not being given the prime time slot that you guys show is as important. You mention it once on TV, but that's all you do. Y'all have given some really great women a chance. You've given Tay Conti a chance to prove that she deserved a bigger role in WWE. You've given people like, you've given Nicole Savoy a chance with the Swole family, and I think that's freaking awesome. But also, you're trying to act like we're stupid by saying it's a randomized draw, and oh, look what happens. The Nightmare Sisters are together, and Ivelisse and Diamante are together. We're not fucking stupid. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of them bringing in Cameron. I mean, I thought that kind of showed it was random because, Nyla Rose and Cameron, that's a funny pairing. But, Cameron? You couldn't find anyone else but Cameron? Anyways, no offense to Cameron, but I think a lot of you know what I mean. Like, that was a weird choice. But anyways, this tag team tournament could have been so fucking cool. You could have had the finals be it all out. Because, we're probably going to get some non-title matches there. Give the matches to the women's division. Make it important. Make people know that the women's division is something that you guys are prioritizing. Because, I hate to say this, you guys are falling behind every other big wrestling promotion that has a women's division in terms of your women's division. You guys are lacking so badly that people like Deonna Purrazzo, who you probably easily could have signed, rather would have gone to Impact. And that's no slight to Impact. Impact's women's division is fantastic. She's not going to get nearly as much of a platform as she would have if she signed and was on TNT, but she knows that, she's not going to be prioritized. And I give you credit for dropping things like the Nightmare Collective, which was bad. It was bad. And I give you credit for building up the new women and not just relying on WWE people, no matter what people say. You guys are, building up new people, but continue to show us it's important. Don't be like WWE used to be. AEW should be better than the Give Divas a Chance hashtag. It's so frustrating. And I was saying something earlier tonight to my girlfriend that, they're probably worried about cutting men's segments. But that's what it feels like. That you're like, oh, if we give women more time, then we don't have enough time for the men. Well, there's your problem. You're not giving the women a chance to be better than the men. Give people what they want. I'm sure people really loved the Tag Team Appreciation Night thing tonight, which really was just set up for the Rock and Roll Express to get, attacked by the Revival. But couldn't that have been played out differently? Or, somewhere else? Or couldn't that second have been sacrificed for a women's promo or something? Cut it by 2 minutes. We didn't need another TNT challenge for Cody. And yes, it was awesome to see Scorpio Sky tonight. But why don't we have an AEW open challenge match for Hikaru Shida? Why don't we have maybe a battle royal to determine her number one contender? Why don't we just do something on AEW to just give us the time that the women deserve. And I know we're never going to get to the point where the women are given 50-50 to what the men are given. At least we're not anywhere close. But like, come on, guys. It's what people want to see. And I am so proud to be a fan of AEW. But when it comes to the women's division, I am so disappointed. And it has nothing to do with the women's wrestlers. It is all because of the way you're portraying them. They do not feel important. They do not feel special. They feel like they are just an add-on that you guys are just like, yeah, we'll give them, a match, whatever. No, they should feel like a big fucking deal. And you know what? You can change that by, number one, get rid of the fucking tiny belt. Get a real fucking sized belt. Make it look very similar to the AEW men's title. Or make it look completely differently. But make it big. If it's going to be called a world title, don't make it look like a toy title. If you're going to say that you are the best wrestling promotion in the world, which I believe you are, figure out what is popular, which you have for everything but women's wrestling, and understand that women's wrestling is one of the most important things a wrestling company can focus on. It is going to get you so much more attention. People are going to care about it. It's probably what is holding you back from not clobbering NXT every week, because NXT actually has a really, really solid women's division, and yours is just treated like it doesn't matter. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my deep dive into the AEW women's division. Let me know what you think. I got a little heated, I apologize, but I thought this was a very important topic to talk about, especially to prove that I'm not happy with AEW for everything, even though I might act like it. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know what you want to hear next. Give me some things you might want to see me talk about. And let me know your comment on the AEW's women's division. And let me know what you think of women's wrestling in general right now. Who do you think is doing the best? Who do you think is not doing very well? Anyways, thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.